Resuming debate, the honourable member from Windsor West.
And this is the first time I was in this chamber as you in the helm, and I want to say congratulations for all your previous work that you've done in Parliament and as a parliamentary secretary, and also your new tenure as Speaker in this chamber. And I'm glad to speak on this bill, motion 79 from the member from Elmwood-Transcona. I've kind of affectionately referred to this bill as ending Ottawa entitlement to my entitlements motion, because that's really what this is about. This is about the traditional gatekeepers in this facility that have kept the doors closed on many Canadians, at the same time protecting their self-interest. And I'll get some of into that a little bit later. It also could be another bill characterized bestly when prorogation is used by the Prime Minister is to go running to your mommy or daddy to protect you from basically the people around you, because that's what it really is, because they go running to the monarchy to basically beg for forgiveness. And it was the Queen before, and now it's the King, and it's because I can't handle it anymore, please save me. Well, you know, Mr. Speaker, it's ridiculous. In a modern democracy, you shouldn't have to be running to your mommy and daddy as an adult in this place. And that's really what it's about. And that's what's taken place with prorogation. And it's to protect their own interests, Mr. Speaker. And I think one of the biggest things that we want to see with this motion is greater accountability for the public so they understand the rules. And really, at the end of the day, this basically prorogation is, well, I just simply don't have to do it anymore, so the rules don't apply to me, I'll see you later. And I'm sure a lot of Canadians can relate that. They wish they could prorogue their laundry. They wish they could prorogue doing the dishes. They wish they could prorogue awkward conversations with people they don't want to be around. But they can't. They have to deal with them. They have to deal with them, Mr. Speaker. And it's sad, because that's really what we're dealing with. And I've seen this happen in the worst of circumstances with Prime Minister Harper, who didn't want to actually deal with the House of Commons at that time, and I've seen it with the current Prime Minister, where he didn't want to deal with the We scandal, for example. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, it's a very serious issue, because it also is used a way of keeping privileges and entitlements. And it was funny, because I was thinking about gatekeeping this morning, and yeah, sure, when you want to protect entitlement here, there's protecting entitlement that you get as a Prime Minister and all the perks and whistles. There's also, to my Conservative friends, there's perks of keeping Stornoway on all the privileges and things there. And by the way, Stornoway does have a gate. It has a gate because the gate needs to protect the gardener, has to protect the butler, has to protect the person that's actually making the meals, the $70,000 a year of budget it gets. It also has a history of basically being part of the entitlements here that we need to get rid of. And I think that it's really important that people know, though, that prorogation is something that is really unique and special at the workplace. You don't get to call a timeout in a democracy, and that's really what this is. I can't get my act together, I can't get my caucus together, I can't do whatever, and I get to call a timeout. And the problem with that, they're very serious issues. We dealt with, one of the prorogations was over documents of women and men and the issues over Afghanistan. And that's still, we have that legacy to this day, Mr. Speaker. The devastation to individuals and what's taken place subsequently would have been shining highlights on those things. We look at right now, the consequences still are felt, because we have many Afghanistan men and women who served under our country's banner that are still in harm's way. Some cannot even come to this country still, because we still don't have our act together on that. And that's really significant. The legacy of prorogation goes beyond the moment of the day, because all the stuff in the House of Commons ceases and stops. And it ceases and stops. It grinds to halt everything, and that costs money. So to the parties that often eloquate themselves to being the champions of being custodians of the public purse, well, we saw this last unnecessary election being around $630 million go down the drain. And then we have others, when Harper did it, where it froze all the House of Commons and operations and work of hundreds of thousands of dollars in that year alone, between the studies that we do, the people that we fly into, see as part of our hearings, getting those witnesses to come forth, producing reports, all the work that's done in the chamber, all the hours that goes into moving bills are basically liquidated at that point in time. And how many bills? Dozens and dozens of important bills were killed by the Conservatives and the Liberals, and some of them have to come back to the next Parliament. And that's where the real damage is done, Mr. Speaker, because the rest of the world, they don't get the time out or time off. They don't come running to mommy or daddy to try to figure things out. The world still goes, but the grinding of Parliament starts and the grinding of Senate follows. And what that does, it means we have to start over. And I can't tell you, Mr. Speaker, how many of those bills dealt with social justice, They dealt with women's rights. They dealt with housing. They dealt with the environment. They dealt with the auto industry. They dealt with a number of different things that we are trying to compete with in the world. And if the Prime Minister right now chose to prorogue this Parliament, here's what we'd lose. We'd lose a GST rebate and a modest housing initiative that we're doing and work on the Competition Bureau. All gone. We would lose, in my committee, we have 96 witnesses alone. There's about 140 that have actually want to work on it. C27 on artificial intelligence, Canada's first artificial intelligence world. As the entire world is moving past us and beyond right now, that would be the real consequence. And if there are elections called, because we have to bend a knee to the monarchy again, in the way that system that we have, because the Governor General can decide, then what ends up happening is that we're into another costly election. We don't have an issue at all that can come back unless there's unanimous consent. And on top of that, you have months and months, if not more, to almost a full year to get back into order the work that's gone. And Mr. Speaker, that's critical, because if we are trying to compete with the rest of the world, and we have world events that are taking place, like right now, my heart goes out to what's taking place. So many people are suffering. It's not just the wars. There's famine. There's Canadians here dealing with an opioid crisis. We have a whole series of issues on housing, affordability. People can't pay groceries. But what we can do is we can have the Prime Minister of the day basically say, I'll see you later. I'm calling a timeout. You guys just deal with that on your own, and I'll keep all my privileges intact. And you know what's funny, Mr. Speaker, is when that happens, the Prime Minister's salary is never prorogued. It continues. The perks of the residency and everything else isn't prorogued. It continues. What doesn't continue is the hard work that's necessary to improve lives. And that's why the member for Elgin-Tramuscona is onto something here. And I think it's important, Mr. Speaker, that it's critical that he gets some type of recognition, because this issue hasn't gone away. And I can tell you, his father would be proud of him today. Former member from Elgin-Tramuscona, Bill Blakey. I stood in this chamber with him many, many times and listened to his statesman approach in this place, which is missing in many respects, and the maturity of actually trying to work towards the issue of trying to better this place and bring some rules towards it is a legacy he's carrying on. Because that's what Bill did often in this place. He brought sense and logic to it. Hear, hear. And so what this motion is about, at the end of the day, it's about creating some balance of rules. It doesn't end all the rules and all the different things that are in place right now, but improves upon them in a credible step that goes forward. And that's critical, because we just can't have what we have today. Imagine if Parliament shut down tomorrow. And that's what we're at stake with, Mr. Speaker, our lost voices. So I know that I have to do a small housekeeping amendment here, Mr. Speaker, which I'm going to do very soon. But I want it to be clear, is that this is a reasonable, modest, sensible, practical approach to changing the rules. And Conservatives and Liberals should think about this. I know that often they don't end some of the privileges in this chamber because they think they can just constantly switch back and forth amongst themselves. But there will be a new day when they're not there, and they'll be wishing for this legislation because all their constituents will need it, instead of the ego of the member that's actually occupying the Prime Minister's seat. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move, seconded by the member from South Okanagan, West Kootenay, the following amendment: that the motion be amended by replacing the words "in Standing Order 45, 6A" by adding after the words "an exception to this rule is the following. The division on a confidence motion persistent to Standing Order 53.29, and quote, with the words, end of quote, comma, with the words in Standing Order 45B, 4B, by adding the paragraph 5, the following 6, and motion persistent to Standing Order 53.29. I have that written down since I butchered it so bad, but we'll be submitting that, and it's all really housekeeping for the amendments that were to improve this bill to make it even stronger. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.